And we're back after that brief word from our sponsors here on CFL Free Agent Frenzy. Apologize, folks, some technical difficulties. The stream accidentally ended. So we're back for the final hour and a half, maybe a couple minutes after that due to technical difficulties. We'll see, of Free Agent Frenzy 2025. As we dropped off, we had just finished talking Hamilton Tiger Cats here with Josh Bain from the Eating 'em Raw podcast, and we were trying to give Josh his time to tell us about where to find his stuff. So we don't want to lose that. So Josh, let's try this again. Tell us where people can find everything you've got going on.
Yeah, so for everything with me, you want to hit me Instagram or Twitter at 64YNE. If you want to, and then for the podcast is Eating 'em Raw on Instagram, and then on Twitter is _ Eating 'em Raw. Search up Eating 'em Raw on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all that stuff. We got all of our stuff there. Want to give a special shout out to my co-host Troy Durrell. You want to find him anywhere at Troy Durrell across all platforms. Great football mind there, and yeah, just wanted to thank you guys again for letting me come on here and talk football with you. I hope to do this again soon.
Absolutely, and thanks for taking the time to join us, and thanks for filling in at the last minute and stepping in on a less than a day's notice. I very much appreciate that. So
yeah, no problem, no problem.
Happy to chat with you here today, Josh. Enjoy the rest of the day and the rest of CFL Free Agency.
Thank you. You guys as well. Take care.
All right, that was Josh Bain from the Eating 'em Raw podcast joining us here. Adam, we're back. You're back here as well, and we're talking some more football for the next 2 hours here.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it might help if the guy from Saskatchewan learns where his fingers are and knows what not to hit. Apparently, might have hit a wrong button there. So, hey, we're back. We're live. We're good. We're running. Hopefully, everybody gets the message and comes back and watches us on this channel instead of the old one. So, any major signings, Ryan, that we maybe missed during our little brouhaha or mistake there?
Good question. On a couple of those, I think there were a few notable ones that I can try to. I think I can still pull up the comment history. We talked about Brendan O'Leary Orange back to the Hamilton Tiger Cats. Sean Oakman to Montreal on the defensive line is a notable one, which we'll talk about a little bit more here with our upcoming guest who is waiting in the wing for us here. And I believe Kobe Williams, former Stampeder to the Elks, is official now as well. Yep. So that's what we've got for news for now. But I'm going to hand things over. Trey, you good to hop back in? So I'm going to hand things over to Trey and Adam here to chat with our final guest of the day here. We always like to, in the final couple hours of the show, get a chance to talk Montreal Alouettes with our friend from the Alouettes Flight Deck podcast, the great Cliffy D, is here to join Trey and Adam and chat about the Alouettes.
Absolutely.
Welcome, Cliffy.
Thanks for having me. As always, I appreciate it.
Perfect. Well, hey, Cliffy, before today and we heard about the Sean Oakman deal, really Montreal's been pretty quiet in the free agency, haven't they?
Yeah, I guess you can make the argument that I know like a lot of people love the splashy signings and they want to know, is Danny Matocha going to go out and get other people? And, is anyone going to be leaving the nest, so to speak? And yeah, I mean, for the most part, it has been pretty quiet. It seems like more departures than arrivals, to use a plain expression, because let's not forget the Alouettes really are from the 425 division of the Canadian Air Force. But I digress. Yeah, I think a lot of people were wondering what the Alouettes were going to be doing when free agency got underway today. And we knew that Cyril Hogan-Sandon and Joshua Archibald were going to be coming in, a couple of Quebec boys coming home, so to speak. Sandon is on the offensive line, Archibald on the defensive line. Two areas that the Alouettes, again, we know the games are won in the trenches, and those are two areas that the Alouettes will definitely want to shore up as much as possible. I mean, they've got some studs on both the O-line and the defensive line, but, you always need more. There's always injuries that happen. There are always, retirements, departures, and that was the case this year as Christian Matt decided to hang up his cleats. So Cyril Hogan-Sandon is going to be replacing him, so to speak, or Philippe Gagnon, who's decided to take his talents to Saskatchewan. Joshua Archibald, I'm definitely really keen to see I think he's definitely one of those talents that has been sort of hidden a little bit in BC, but now we're going to get a chance to see him, I think, explode as being part of this incredible defensive line. And now you add Sean Oakman to the mix. Oh my goodness, this is going to be incredible. I mean, Danny Machocha has always talked about the importance of strengthening the defensive line. You've got dudes on that line like Isaac Adeyemi Berglund, Mustafa Johnson, Lual Ugalak, and now you're going to add a Sean Oakman and a Josh Archibald to the mix. Man, that's exciting stuff. Once again, a case where the rich simply get richer.
Absolutely, that defensive line and that's linebacking core, of course, in Montreal has been pretty scary for quite a few years now. One thing, though, that I wanted to talk about a little bit was behind center. The reason being is, of course, they did trade away Cody Fajardo this year, and pretty much, I think, almost, they haven't said it, of course, but Davis Alexander is probably your presumptive number one quarterback going into training camp, at least. McCall Bethel Thompson behind him in number two. How confident are you right now in the Montreal quarterback situation?
100% confident, especially when it comes to Davis Alexander. We've been talking about him for years now. It's crazy to say, like, this is going to be his fourth season in the Canadian Football League, and yet still people are just learning about him as a result of him coming in relief last year for Cody Fajardo and just playing outstanding football, just being the leader that this team will always need under center. And the hype is real when it comes to this kid. I mean, he is just absolutely outstanding. I think, truthfully, it was tough because at the end of the season last year, unfortunately, Cody Fajardo did not play his best game in the Eastern Final. The Alouettes did not go to the Grey Cup, and some would argue that if they did, they would have handed, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers the same kind of butt whooping the Toronto Argonauts did. I mean, it's all speculative, of course, but I mean, a lot of people were also looking at Davis Alexander, his body language on the sidelines during that game, and I think there was a big part of him that was saying, I could have won this game. I could have gone out there. I wouldn't have made those mistakes. I should have been out there leading this team to victory. And now he's going to have that opportunity. Like, he basically, with his outstanding play and his pending free agency status, he basically forced Montreal's hands. Listen, either you make me the man or I'll go somewhere else and I'll be the man. And Danny Machocha's got invested way too much in Davis Alexander just to let him walk away in free agency. So, I mean, I won't say he felt pressured, but at the same time, he had to see the writing on the wall and say, yeah, Davis is our guy. We brought him in. We've groomed him. We've given him the opportunity to develop in this system. It's time for him to drive the car. And that's exactly what it's going to do. And it's unfortunate because I got nothing but love for Cody Fajardo for what he did for this team, for bringing them the Grey Cup championship in 2023. I mean, he definitely deserves, he wanted to retire as an Alouette. I definitely think if he could have, he absolutely would have. But at the same time, he's not washed. He's not, he's still got a lot of football left in him. But at the same time, you can't leave a prodigy like Davis Alexander on the sidelines holding the clipboard. And if Cody's not interested in holding the clipboard, well, something's got to give. And ultimately, that's what it was. So now he's going to have the opportunity to go to help mentor Trey Ford out in Edmonton. Club Bethel Thompson is not going to steal anyone's job. Let's just say what it is. He's not a terrible quarterback. In fact, I think he's a fine journeyman quarterback. I mean, he's won a Grey Cup with the Argos and led them to a Grey Cup victory. So, I mean, it's not like he's just some, random off the street. I mean, he's an established quarterback, but he's not going to be taking Davis Alexander's job away from him by any stretch of the imagination. That being said, I think with the quarterback room as it sits right now, I definitely am very excited, very keen to see what's going to happen with this team. Truthfully, I think the only thing I'm concerned about is short yardage. Like, who's going to be taking those third and one snaps? Yes, Caleb Evans was re-signed, but he did have a very, very horrific injury last season, and I'm hoping that I'm guessing if they're re-signing him, they feel confident that he's going to be able to recover and be ready to go for training camp. But that is still a tiny concern of mine. So I guess we'll see what happens when camp opens in May. But it's definitely going to be interesting, this quarterback room in Montreal going forward.
The one other question I have here is actually in your running back situation. Walter Fletcher, of course, great guy out of the backfield. I mean, his receiving yards and his rushing yards are almost close to the same. Can really definitely get downfield when he needs to for getting a ball. But is there any worry about maybe not having a strong run game are as strong of a run game as maybe some other teams right at the start of the season?
I'd argue that. I mean, Walter Fletcher, yes, what arguably probably the best two-way player in the Canadian Football League right now. Whether it's rushing or receiving, he's your guy. I mean, the guy just gets yards, he gets open, he gets touches, and makes magic happen. But Sean Thomas Erlington, who it's kind of funny, I don't want to say took for granted necessarily when he was signed with the Alouettes in free agency, but the first half of the season, like he was on special teams and doing his thing, nothing outstanding, but he's still in the mix, so to speak. But truthfully, I wasn't expecting too much out of him. But when he came alive, he really came alive in the second half of the season and just played really outstanding football to the point where I'm feeling very confident, like him and Fletcher being like that 1-2 punch for Montreal. You've also got a Stevie Scott waiting in the wings as well. He had an outstanding training camp last year, and simply need an opportunity to get in there and get some playing time. I know there's the Alouettes are bringing in a couple other running backs that have some notoriety in college down in the States, and once again, it's going to be a chance for them to showcase what they can do. But honestly, I think this running back room is extremely solid. I mean, again, barring something catastrophic happening to Fletcher and Erlington, I mean, I think this backfield is definitely in really good shape for the Alouettes.
Awesome. Yeah, for sure. We'll stick with the offense. One last question. A lot of top name receivers were up for grabs this year. Lawler, Eugene Lewis. The Montreal decided to kind of keep everything with what they had. That's not a terrible decision in hindsight, though, is it?
No, not really. I mean, yes, one could make the argument that it'd be cool if they went after like a really splashy receiver, but truthfully, do you need it? I mean, this receiving room is pretty good, actually, when you think about it. I mean, you're going to have Tyson Philpott back at 100%, Austin Mack, Cole Speaker, who all he does is catch touchdowns and makes outstanding plays, Tyler Snead as well, who I've long referred to as Cahoon 3.0. I mean, like this guy is just much like Ben Cahoon, small, dangerous, makes receptions, makes magic happen as well. Shedler Furvius is a draft pick from 2 years ago that I think is waiting for a breakout session, and I think this could be the year that happens if given the time and space. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, like would it have been cool to bring in like a flashy receiver, like a Kenny Lawler type, or even bring back Geno Lewis for a homecoming of sorts? Would have been cool, but I would have been quite surprised had Danny Mac blown his brains out to get one of those two guys, for example, or making an impact like that. That's the thing with Montreal. A lot of people, like even 2 years ago during the Grey Cup year, a lot of people were like, once Geno Lewis and a lot of the other receivers had left, people were like, who's going to catch the ball for Cody Fajardo? And this is where these stars came out. This is where the Austin Macks, the Cole Speakers, the Tyler Sneads, they came out of the woodwork and played outstanding football. If anything, I think losing a Keon Julian Grant is tough. Losing a Reggie White Jr. is tough because those are solid depth pieces. But I think this running back room, like the starters that are in place now, they're going to make Davis Alexander look like a superstar. And I think Davis Alexander, too, will make them look like there's absolutely no worries whatsoever when it comes to the receiving room in Montreal. I'm offensively, I'm not too worried at all about the Montreal Alouettes. I mean, even though they didn't make any massive, exciting moves when it comes to the offense, they got the pieces in place that they had to, and I think Alouettes fans have to be very excited about that.
No, it's funny. We've been talking on this show who has the most dangerous receiving core in the league now with all these movement, and I'll admit I kind of forgot about Montreal because they haven't made any moves, and now looking at it just now, they're up there, right? They're quite up there without needing to make a big splash. Yeah, anything you see though on the offensive line? A lot of Canadian depth. It looks like. Is there any holes in that you see?
Well, as I said, with the retirement of Christian Matz, I mean, that was a hole that's going to have to be filled. Jesse Gibbons, Cyril Hogenstein, those are names that we know can do the job for Christian as well. The draft is always going to produce. There's going to be a lot of talent in the draft, especially when it comes to the offensive line. With Montreal having the 5th pick, I believe it is, they can definitely go out and get themselves another member of the O-line if need be. again, I'm looking forward to that too, to see what kind of talent's going to be available in the draft. But honestly, I think the way this O line sits right now, I mean, I think they're going to be fine as long as they can give Davis Alexander the time and space needed to do what he does best. As long as they can create some lanes for Walter Fletcher to, tear off a couple of big runs. Perhaps the biggest name the biggest concerns that I've always had was at tackle, but now when you've got Jamar McGloster and Joshua Donovan basically bookending things along with Nick Callender, this O line is more than fine, provided there's no catastrophic injuries or anything of that nature. I think this Alouettes O line is going to be in good shape for at least the next couple of years to come.
Awesome. I only have one question on the defensive side, and I'll kick it back to Adam after that. And I have to ask, everyone has to ask, what's kind of the sense on the whole Sean Lemon situation in Montreal anyway? Or what's the feeling about it? Does the fans want him back? Is it not really an issue? What's going on that side?
Oh, absolutely. The fans want him back. I mean, the guy was a fan favorite. I mean, extremely popular with everybody. You saw, like, despite, not being a young man, he was still playing at a very high level. And it's just unfortunate that the circumstances that led to his suspension, which I kind of take umbrage with the fact that he was handed a 2-game suspension for PEDs on top of an indefinite suspension. So what was the point of that? I think that's the thing I really have a hard time wrapping my head around. Like, why would you give him to me, that seems like insult to injury. Like, okay, you've already established, he admitted to gambling. He admitted to his wrongdoing there, and you want to punish him indefinitely for it. So be it. I mean, would it be nice to have him back? Sure, of course it would. But he did the crime, and now he's doing the time. But now you're going to tack on a 2-game. Like, would you do that unless you thought there's even a remote possibility that he'd be unsuspended, like his suspension for gambling would be lifted? I don't know. To me, it doesn't make any sense. Like, it doesn't pass the smell test, as they say. Like, why would you tack this on? Like, what, insult to injury kind of thing? Like, I mean, it makes absolutely no sense to me. But
my only kickback would be it'd be like giving someone the 4-time death penalty. Like, you know what I mean? What's the point of that? I guess the point is for a paperwork standpoint that they need to note it. They can't just let it go. You're right. I have no idea if he'll ever come back from the first suspension. When we've seen gambling suspensions in other leagues, no one's returned yet for the most part. So you're right on that part. But I guess, you have to note it just in case he does get reinstated, that he does still have to sit 2 more games, I guess, or something. So I don't know how that works. Or does it count already because he sat out? Like, when was this test showed up? Was it last? Does it count? I guess it's a paperwork thing and probably a money thing when it comes to salary and all that. But you're right.
Yeah, and also too, he is technically a free agent. So I mean, if he gets reinstated, and whether it signs with the Alouettes or with any other club, then yes, he would have to sit those 2 games. But I mean, Randy Ambrosi himself had made it clear that he's indefinitely suspended. So okay, then fine. Unless I don't know if it's like a president, outgoing president, you give out those pardons. Like, is he going to pardon Sean Lemon as one of his last acts as CFL commissioner, or is it possible the incoming commissioner might decide to reinstate him? I guess only time's going to tell on that one. But yeah, to me, that 2-game suspension, like, why? But you're right. Perhaps it is just a paperwork thing, or some sort of administrative thing that has to be done from the league to Lemon. So it just seems silly. It's the optics more than anything else that just seems silly. More, when I think about it.
Yeah,
Adam, you got anything else?
Yeah, no, I really wanted to run through your line. Defensive line, yeah, you guys have been just great all for quite a little while. Your linebacking core, though, with Tyrese Beverett and with Darnell Sankey, I mean, I don't know if there's really a better 1-2 combination in the league. Is there, Cliffy?
You'd be hard-pressed to find. And don't forget, Jeffrey Conte-Arcu has looked really outstanding in his rookie season. I fully expect him to just keep adding to that. You've also got Tyrell Richards, first overall pick from a couple of years ago. Unfortunately, he's been stung by the injury bug a couple of times in his career. And if he could just stay healthy, he too would be an absolute force. Like, both he and Kante-Arcu would be the national 1-2 punch, whereas Beverett and Sankey would be the, I guess, American 1-2 punch for the Alouettes when it comes to the linebacking core. I mean, this linebacking core, as it sits right now, is always been dangerous and has always made life miserable for opposing quarterbacks. And again, I just think it's a matter of the rich getting richer.
I've asked the question to almost anybody that I've seen so far. If there is one free agent, and again, a full free agent, not a guy that's been potentially signed somewhere, one free agent that would make the Montreal Alouettes go from first in the East to making the Grey Cup, which guy is it, and why do you want him?
Well, I'm not going to lie. Losing Reggie Stubblefield to the Hamilton Tiger Cats is tough. I mean, he was coming off an ACL injury, and I have a feeling that the Alouettes were kind of trying to play it safe, hoping that that would scare off other potential suitors as well, and that he'd be able to sign back for a hometown discount, shall we say. But clearly, the Hamilton Tiger Cats feel very confident in his abilities and offered him a tremendous salary as a result as well as a 3-year contract. So, I mean, that's great for Reggie, and God bless him for being able to land that. To me, that was one of those players that Montreal developed and would still find use for, whether it's as strong side linebacker or even if you had to move him back into the secondary. I mean, dude can play just about any of those positions and play them extremely well. That would have been a move that I would have liked to have seen made, but I understand. I have a feeling that this is where Montreal was thinking, was that we can't blow our brains out for Reggie, and it's unfortunate that it came to that. And with this influx of salary cap money, I'm wondering if maybe Danny Machocho, if he could have had a do-over, would he have been able to do that? But I guess we'll never know, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, there's still a couple of positions along the secondary that I'm concerned about, that I would like to see a little bit of movement on, and perhaps we will. And that's the thing with the Alouettes, is they don't necessarily make those big splashy moves on day one, and clearly they don't see the value in the tampering window to the same degree that other teams might. But in the next coming days, I fully expect the Montreal Alouettes, I can see them making a couple of sneaky good moves and maybe bring in someone that's going to help strengthen that secondary, or another linebacker, or they're going to find that additional piece to the puzzle when it comes to offense. I mean, as I said, offensively, I think Montreal's in great shape. Defensively, I know that they'll be great, especially with a lot of the camp hands they're going to be bringing in. I think it's one of those cases of finding a diamond in the rough that I think is going to be the key for Montreal. And that's really what it came down to when it came to Reggie Stubblefield. Nobody knew who this guy was 2 years ago, and now all of a sudden he's extremely coveted by other teams. So, I mean, if nothing else, Montreal and Noel Thorpe, they just know how to develop defensive players and bring out the very best in them. So I'm almost content to say, you know what, let him cook. Let Danny Machocha cook. Let this coaching staff do their thing. And it sounds crazy for Alouettes fans to be worried about this, but I always say trust the process. I think the way this organization has built itself, especially as a championship organization, I think the pieces are in place. It's just simply a matter of going out and executing and see what the draft is going to produce, see what other moves are going to be made over the next couple of days. But I think the Alouettes are in really good shape and can only get better at this point.
Well, the last question I've got really for you is, last year we seen that maybe the little bit of a chink in the armor on anything on the Montreal Alouettes was the run-stop game. Is there something in this that could possibly help fix that? Again, Archibald probably would be a good choice, but is there something else that you think might work to try to help for the run block for the Alouettes?
Well, that's definitely where your front seven is going to. You got to make sure that this is a finely tuned unit, because yes, it definitely was tough. I noted it more than once. It wasn't just like a one-off thing. This happened over several games where the run defense was just lacking. And is that execution? Is that coaching? I mean, it's tough. I really want to believe that this unit will come together, especially to a lot of the new pieces in place that were there last year. Like I said, the Countess Arcus, for example. I mean, now that he's aware of the system, he's aware of what needs to be done. I mean, I definitely think this Ellis team, I think they realize how important it is to stop the run. At the same time, trying to get your edge rushers out to make the quarterback's life a living hell. I would have liked to seen a little bit more of that last year. I mean, aside from Isaac Adeyemi Berglund, who just devoured people in his path, I'd like to see a little bit more of that. And maybe with the addition of Sean Oakman now on the defensive line, Mustafa Johnson coming back healthy, because he unfortunately got hurt and kind of trailed off towards the end of the season. So if he comes back at 100% and all these other guys that have been listed, yeah, I definitely think that sort of paradigm shift is definitely needed in Montreal, and I think we're going to be seeing that as well. So as far as I'm concerned, like this defense as it sits right now is looking really good, and once again, the sky's the limit when it comes to the talent on this team.
Yeah, I can't argue that. Cliffy, of course, you're part of the Canadian Football Podcast Network. Be sure to give yourself a plug here and what you've been up to lately.
Well, actually, I'm so excited. Our 10th broadcast season is going to get underway this Thursday. So myself and Tim Capper are extremely excited. We're going to be back in the chair, back on the mics, talking Alouettes football, talking about the moves that are being made today, and let's see if they can get some more exciting news for us to talk about tomorrow as well. That'd be fantastic. But yes, this Thursday evening, the Alouettes Flight Deck will be back, launching our 10th broadcast season. We are so excited. We've got a commemorative logo that we made up for the occasion and new sponsor as well. We're now being presented by Royal Retros, and we are so excited for that partnership to get underway. Make sure you tune in as well to our sister show, Flight Deck Live, once the regular season gets underway. Always excited to be able to do that. Excited to go live as well and talk football with everybody. But yes, this Thursday, the Alouettes Flight Deck will be back. Make sure you check it out. X, Facebook, Instagram, all those things. Make sure you definitely check us out. Subscribe, like as well. Show us the love. We definitely appreciate it. And we are just so damn excited to get back talking football again.
I think we all are. Maybe not the Kansas City Chiefs. Everybody else, though, probably real excited to talk some football. So
you might be right on that.
For joining us. Yeah, thank you very much again for joining us. Looking forward to hearing the Flight Deck for this 10th season. And by the way, happy birthday to your niece, because I seen that listed on Twitter this morning. So
appreciate it. Yeah, definitely will pass that along. Thank you so much again. And hey, you guys, every year you kill it with this show, with this live stream, despite the little hiccup that happened. But I hope people have been tuning in and taking note of everything that's going on, because to me, this is the unofficial start of the Canadian football season. To be able to start talking about free agency, the moves that are being made, how each team is getting better. I mean, listen, this is, even though it's dead of winter, we're still talking Canadian football. How can you be mad about that?
Absolutely. There's no way you could ever argue that one. And again, thank you very much, Cliffy, for joining us here. Let's see what Montreal does this the rest of this offseason, and definitely looking like a pretty good team so far in the East. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you. Take care.
Okay, we're bringing Ryan back here. Ryan, what do you have for thoughts on the Alouettes this season?
Oh, good question, Adam. The Montreal Alouettes, I think a lot of what you talked about, at least the parts I caught, I did step away for a little bit, but the first thing comes to mind is Davis Alexander. I'm excited to see them go that direction at quarterback. I think he's been buying his time for the last couple of years, and it's exciting to see him get that opportunity, and just hope that the pieces are in place there to make him successful, right? Like they've got a pretty good receiving core. They've got lots of depth at the position there for them. They've got 3 guys on there over 750 yards last year, and then you've got Snead, who was injured, Mack, who has gone in the NFL for a while. So I think there's some good weapons there for the Alouettes. My concern for them would be the other teams in the division getting better, right? Hamilton seemingly getting better today. Ottawa, maybe taking another step forward this year. Montreal's been that beast of the East, so to say, in the regular season, at least over the last year or two. And I think the other teams are starting to catch up a little bit.
Trey, what did you have for the Alouettes this year so far? I mean, their offseason, they do look good, and I'll give them this. They look very good in paper.
Yeah, they're one of those teams because they didn't do anything. I kind of forgot about them. I kind of thought, ooh, don't get left behind. But then just going through their roster now, Alexander starting as quarterback, their running backs aren't terrible. They have a great receiving core, especially if they all stay healthy. Their defense is pretty dang good. If they're able to somehow get a Sean Lemon back, it's just going to get better.
Happen.
I mean, I'm not saying yes or no. I'm just saying if this is the CFL, crazier things have happened.
I'll put it this way. I think probably though Sean Lemon has a better chance right now to sign than Adam Big Hill.
Yeah, exactly. I think someone will take the if they reinstate him and even have to sit the 2 games. I think someone will take him in a heartbeat, especially Montreal, where Cliffy was just talking about how he's a fan favorite. They don't care. They'll tell him to keep betting on the games if it means he's gonna play good. I don't know, but I think Montreal's got a good chance. Like it's. Yeah, I'm not looking forward to us ranking these teams, which is coming up
pretty
after 4:00.
Yeah, pretty soon. We enter the final hour here of Free Agent
Frenzy. The
witching
hour? Is this the witching hour?
This is the witching hour. Can we say that, or is that copyright?
I don't think you're allowed to say the whole thing, though. That's the only thing.
Yeah. Final hour of Free Agent Frenzy 2025. There's been a lot of news coming in and out throughout the day, despite a lot of it being stuff from the past week. We've had a lot to chat about. Of course, having all of our guests here has helped. Thank you to we had 12 different guests join us throughout the show today. Coverage of every single CFL team, a couple bonus guests in between there. So thank you to everybody who did spend their time with us today to help make this a success. Because if it was just like the 3 of us and Mike chatting for 8 hours, I think people get sick of it pretty quick. Mike and I tried to do the first year we did this. I think we did 5 or 6 straight hours of just me and him. And I don't blame people for not wanting to listen to just my voice for 6 hours. So well, let's finish it strong. It's just us the rest of the way. I've heard Mike might be joining us down the stretch as well, if he can make it back home in time. But we're going to go through our winners and losers, biggest surprises and stuff like that for the day here. But first, we do have some news updates for you. There are a couple that we knew were coming. When we talked with Mark Steven about the Calgary Stampeders, he mentioned Jeshran Antwi was a pending signing, but only wasn't official yet because school was still in session. Because Jeshran Antwi is a teacher and he needed to wait for school to finish to sign his deal, and that he did. He is officially signed with the Calgary Stampeders, so he called that one. That's a rare, interesting story there. Liam Dobson is now officially signed to the Hamilton Tiger Cats. Adrian Green officially signed to the Calgary Stampeders. And you guys want some breaking news?
Oh, I just saw it on Twitter. If it's the one I think you're talking about.
It is the one I'm talking about. The one big piece left on the free agent quarterback market is off the board. Is quarterback Cameron Dukes has signed an extension with the Toronto Argonauts. So they bring back Nick Arbuckle. They bring back Cameron Dukes. Now let's talk about that for a little bit here. We chatted with Doug from Argos Fancast earlier about, Chad Kelly and recovery from injury and bringing back Arbuckle. I really like bringing back all 3 of these guys. Thoughts?
I'll let Adam go first. If you want.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, Ryan. I think it's a good move. Am I there?
Yep.
Still working? My internet here I know has been giving me a little bit of issue. But anyways, I like the move to be bringing him back. I mean, Chad Kelly could be a little bit delayed coming back. You never know what can be happening here. So having all 3 is a good choice this year, probably. You can always, again, a CFL contract is never guaranteed unless it is. This one won't be. So if you do want to cut him halfway through the season, you can cut him halfway through the season. But for having that guy being a number 2, potentially going into spring camp because Chad Kelly's not there again, not a bad idea. And again, Chad Kelly also known as for some of the shenanigans for some other stuff once in a while. So if he all of a sudden gets something against him again, hopefully he doesn't. But if he does, there's always the option that you've got the extra quarterback ready to go when you do need him. And again, another training camp with Cameron Dukes there and with Nick Arbuckle there. I think it's going to help the Toronto Argonauts. Trey,
any thoughts from you?
What do you think?
Oh, for sure. I think this is getting Arbuckle and Kelly back Arbuckle and Dukes back is straight insurance on Kelly. Either the Argos aren't convinced he's going to be back right away due to injury, or like you said, the off-field shenanigans, you never know. Because again, we always look from a team perspective. Yes, the Argos would love to have Kelly, Arbuckle, Dukes as their three quarterbacks, and you think about it. But I think a lot of times get missed is what I try to channel is if I'm Dukes or Arbuckle, do I want to be there? Do I want to be the number 2 guy or number 3 guy? I didn't think Dukes was that bad the first few weeks. Like, obviously, you're going to throw Kelly back in when he was done sitting in the penalty box, but I don't think he was terrible. I think he had a couple bad games near the end. I was actually quite surprised that he had been completely leapfrogged by Arbuckle down the stretch when Kelly got hurt again. So I think that these are 3 talented guys in that locker room now, in that quarterback room. And I'm more surprised that Dukes and Arbuckle want to be there. Arbuckle's 31. Oh, geez, Chad Kelly's 30. He doesn't tweet like he's 30. He tweets like he's 21. But yeah, I think there's still a lot of upside on Cam Dukes. I'm assuming it's probably a 1-year, 2-year backup contract kind of thing. And like Adam said, could get cut at any time. An injury could happen in another team. And now look, Toronto goes, hey, we could trade you, Nick Arbuckle or Cam Dukes, if, so-and-so goes down, or you're on your – how many quarterbacks did we go through last year, most teams, other than Calgary, right? So that could be some trade bait, and that could be something that they worked in, like, hey, just do your job. And is Cam Dukes the short yardage guy too, likely? Was that kind of his job? Yeah, so I don't know.
Kelly sometimes does it himself, actually.
Yeah, but maybe they don't want to do that with them coming back from an injury, as well, a leg injury. Didn't he like snap his leg in half or ankle or something pretty bad?
That's pretty bad, yeah.
Yeah, something pretty bad. So I don't know if you really want him doing I don't think you want him doing the tush push as much on that weak ankle. So I'm surprised again from the player's perspective, but yeah, it makes complete sense for the Argos.
I just don't think there were a lot of options left for him after some of the other pieces fell into place. You looked at maybe Winnipeg as a place where it would be a fit for him, but once they brought back Chris Strevler and they brought in Shea Patterson, that window kind of closed there. We talked about BC maybe needing a backup quarterback. As soon as Mazzoli signed there, that removed that option for him. Calgary's only got 2 under contract. Could that be a spot? Maybe that Cam Dukes could have gone, sure. But everybody else, like Edmonton's got Fajardo and Ford. Hamilton's got Mitchell. They've got Powell. Josh was telling us how high they are on Powell. Montreal's got their duo. Ottawa's got 3 guys. Saskatchewan's got their duo. And we're in a whole lot of options left. And I really like this move for the Argos because I can get bringing back Arbuckle after his Grey Cup performance. But I don't think Arbuckle is who you should bank on as like your future depth quarterback, right? And I think Dukes is a guy you want to grow in that regard. So a good fit there. As we're in our final hour here, let's take a look maybe at some of these pending transactions that aren't official yet. There are a number of them around the CFL that have not officially been announced, but will be announced in the coming days. Would be good to take a look here. The Edmonton Elks, we talked about, they're waiting to get medical tests done before announcing a number of these additions. Offensive lineman David Beard, from formerly of the Ticats, pending deal with the Elks. Same with Jared Brinkman on the defensive line, 3 sacks and a forced fumble for him last season. Robbie Smith was 6 sacks last year on the defensive line, and Tyrell Ford, probably the biggest option available at defensive back going to the Elks. 7 interceptions, 51 tackles for him last season. You keep it coming with Edmonton because they've been unofficially busy. And 8 sacks and 1 forced fumble for one Jake Seresna on the defensive line. Also a pending transaction there. The Ticats have a couple pending deals in place. Taiwan Garbett, 3 sacks and a forced fumble last year with the Bombers, joins the Ticats on a presumed 2-year deal. And a 3-year contract, as we've already previously talked about, for Reggie Stubblefield to join the Ticats from the Alouettes. Speaking of the aforementioned Edmonton Elks, Gregor McKellar on the offensive line is another pending transaction. Same as Royce Metier at defensive back. 87 tackles, a pick, and a couple forced fumbles for him last year. A 2-year pending contract with the Elks. Boy, this list keeps going. There are a lot of pending deals still in place. I'll quickly run through them. Kobe Williams with the Elks as well. I think that one is actually official. I haven't updated it in the sheet yet, so we'll do so. We're still waiting to hear if Kenny Lawler is in fact signing with the Ticats. That's a 2-year pending contract worth $275,000. Did he change his mind at all with the cap increase? Perhaps remains to be seen, but we presume he'll sign with the Ticats in short order. I've read online that Eugene Lewis is just waiting past his medical test as well before signing with the Red Blacks, so expect that in the coming days. Godfrey Enyeka with the Stamps at defensive back. Tyson Middlemost, Cody Grace with the Elks. Deshaun Amos, I believe that one's official. I haven't updated that one yet in the chart. My apologies. And Shea Patterson, we're still waiting for official word, but all signs point to going towards the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. And then finally, Derek Moncrief, which is actually official now as well, going to the Stamps. So a handful of pending transactions to be announced in the coming days. We welcome Michael Garrell back in for the closing of the show here. Mike, how you doing?
Not too bad, you guys.
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. It's fun. Free Agent Frenzy Day is fun as always. Trey's here. Adam's here. Oh, did we just lose Adam? Oh, where are we going? What's happening here, folks? Who's pressing buttons?
That's me. I'm sorry. I added and then I kicked Adam out because there's too many people on. There we go.
All right, there we go. Now we got the whole crew in.
I was trying. Let's end the stream again.
No, let's not do that, please. Adam is muted if you were trying to say something there, Adam, but I can't tell if he's trying to talk to us or not.
He's yelling at his mom.
Hit the mute button. I said, if Trey wants to boot me out, I mean, I'll take my pending free agency. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, cut him right before his bonus.
Yeah, salary cap's expanded. There's a lot of podcasts out there that want
Yeah.
All right, we've gone through all of the news so far today. We'll see if any news comes in over the next hour, but now's a good time, as always, to talk about our winners and losers of Free Agency Day, and it's a subjective thing. It's hard to say because we're still a couple months from the season, and we don't know how any of this plays out on paper. But who's everybody's top winner of the opening day of Free Agency? Who wants to go first? Any thoughts? Mike? You are muted as well. The fatigue is setting in for everybody 7 hours in.
All right, I think we're good now. Yeah, we're good now. My winners, quite simply, Hamilton Tiger Cats. They got infinitely better today. I didn't think they needed to do much if they would have brought most of their team back from last year the way they finished, but they got themselves stronger now. The only thing that I kind of have a question about, and we'll see how this works. I'm not sure if our Ticat guest was able to elaborate on this or not. With the signing of Liam Dobson, how does that affect Brendan Rovenberg? Because they both technically listed under the same position, although one of them could switch. But again, my winners will be the Hamilton Tiger Cats for being the best team in the East on paper right now. They got both some new toys. This is, again, working on the assumption that, the Kenny Lawler deal winds up coming through. But no, I just think Hamilton got better. And, so they certainly acquitted themselves well today. And the new general manager, Ted Devaya, he literally poached a bunch of friends from the Winnipeg Blue Bombers and wants to instill that Blue Bomber-esque culture in Hamilton. So.
All right, Mike's going with the Ticats. Adam, what about you?
You know what? Sometimes I always go and you look at free agency and you say, oh my gosh, this guy got this guy and this guy got this guy. And oh my gosh, look at this team's picking up 3 of these guys from this team. And in the end, it's usually the team that doesn't do a lot, just does a few little subtle pickups that ends up being pretty dominant of a team. So my pickup and my choice for the best right now free agency champions of the season right now would be the Montreal Alouettes. They haven't really brought a lot in. They didn't need to. They needed to address the run defense. I mean, that's clear and obvious. Their receiving core has been very good. Their running backs, I think there could be some work, but hey, again, there's always a running back somewhere. You just got to look for them, and the next great one might be in Montreal next year. Who knows? Honestly, I like what they're doing. They've got a young quarterback. They've got a good offensive line to protect them. They've got good weapons in there for the receivers. That defense is absolutely terrifying. If you look at it on paper, I think that's probably the scariest defense in the league right now. They got a few little pieces that they probably could add to, but every team does. I mean, you can go to Saskatchewan and complain about the center, but they don't have one technically. You could go to Calgary and say that they don't really even have any depth for quarterback or receivers to get to them. There's always a flaw with every team if you really look deep and hard into it. I think Montreal's got the least flaws. So yeah, I'm going to go with them winning free agency so far.
Oh boy, is that me then next? You know what? I'm going to go. I don't want to pick someone already that Mike or Adam picked. So I'm going to go off a little bit here. I'm going to go to the 6. Drake might have lost this weekend, but I think the Argos won today because they got both their backup quarterbacks back at Arbuckle and Dukes. They re-signed Kadeem Carey. They did lose Serezna, but I think they picked up a lot of pieces there. I think they picked up their quarterbacks and their running back nicely, and I think there was some other pieces that they added. We're going through right now. Varga, Haba, they picked up some good pieces. And again, I like both of Adams and Mike's picks, but I didn't want to go copycat. So let's go with the Argos.
For my picks here, I think the obvious answer, I'm surprised nobody has said yet, is the Edmonton Elks, just based on the sheer number of additions this team has had, and they've improved greatly. I think David Beard on the offensive line is a great addition. Gregor McKellar at only 26 is potential future star offensive lineman. I believe I want to say 6th overall pick a couple of years ago in the draft. Gregor McKellar was. A defensive line completely overhauled here with Serezna, Smith, and Brinkman. Fantastic additions. Rugamba's a solid addition at linebacker. They re-signed Niles Morgan as well, which I didn't think they were going to have room for. And then Ford, Williams, Metier at defensive back, and even Cody Grace at punter. I think were all amazing additions for the Edmonton Elks. My one concern for them still is the wide receiver position, which I would have liked to see a little bit more activity there today for the team. But I think this team is set up well. They've really built in the trenches and built on the defensive side of the ball, where if they can get that shutdown defense that gives their offense time on the field, they have such a run-heavy mentality offense that they're just going to eat the clock, right? And that opposing defense is going to get tired, and that's going to open things up for Edmonton. So, the best addition for their offense might just be their defense in here. But to not go with the one who just signed the most, I'll give an honorable mention to Calgary as well. And this includes deals from, going back to November even or December. Bringing in Vernon Adams, I really like Dominic Rhymes and the guy I proclaimed preseason 6th best receiver in CFL, Tevin Jones, at the wide receiver position, and some of their other changes like bringing in Moncrief, bringing in Damon Webb. It's not as flashy, so to say, as what Edmonton did, but it's a team that needed to make changes in free agency and normally doesn't, and I think this year they did. So I want to give an honorable mention out to the Stampeders. Let's flip it back around and talk about losers of free agency day one. And again, that might be harder to quantify than who won. Let's go back to you first this time, Trey. Who would you say is your loser of free agency?
I'm going to go with your winner, Calgary. I expected way more out of them. Yeah, they got VA, but I mean, I expected them to really put a team around him, and maybe they tried, and maybe that D- rating last fall, stop some of these players from coming there. Maybe they just other teams offered more money, whatever it is. But, I say this all the time when it comes to the Winnipeg Jets. It's still on them to get players here. I don't want to hear, but players don't want to come here. No, you got to make this franchise a place you want to come, and Calgary's just not doing that right now. And, I want to, I really want to know, put some truth serum in Vernon Adams Jr. Does he really want to go to Calgary? Did he really want to go there? So, he got traded, really doesn't have an option. Did he resign, or did he already have a year left? Do you remember? You're muted, Ryan.
I think he has a year left.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. So he hasn't even re-signed there. Watch this year go sideways and he's out. He's Peace Boys next year. Who knows? So
no, I think he is under contract through 2026.
Okay, but still, he's still 34 is not terribly old. I don't know. I don't know if he's going to be the guy in Calgary for 4 or 5 years. Maybe if he turns it around. But yeah, I wanted a lot more out of Calgary.
Mike,
I'm going to sound absolutely. Sorry, Mike. You want to go first, or you want me to?
No, that's fine. Go ahead.
Okay. I'm going to sound absolutely crazy by going and picking on the team that signed the most players right off the bat, and I'm going to go with the Edmonton Elks. They lost a lot of big talent on this team that maybe it's getting older, but you know what? Eugene Lewis, Tevin Jones, Gavin Cobb. That was a big loss to a rival team in Winnipeg. You look at some of the other ones that they've lost in here. AC Leonard is now gone and down the road. Lucas Purifoy is down the road somewhere, and I don't think he'll be coming back to Edmonton anytime soon. Also serving a suspension. But Boris Beattie, that's another big loss. Sean Oakman was another loss. This Edmonton Elks team lost a lot of pieces for Ed Hervey to make the team in his design. Don't get me wrong. I've seen Hervey make a great team, and I've seen Hervey make a terrible team by doing this. So the jury's out on this. I think Edmonton is maybe a little better than they were yesterday, but boy, it sure cost them to be a little bit better, I think, in the long run. We'll see what happens, but again, you're losing a lot of good, solid defensive and offensive pieces on this team to buy a few others.
Mike?
Can I do control copy, control paste to what Trey said? I do not like what Calgary has done today. Contrary to what's already been said, the risk of repeating myself, I feel the exact same for what Trey just said. I also feel that, there's a point to be made there about Edmonton. Like, how much did they gain versus how much did they lose? We'll see. And then out east, I don't know who. Like, I'm having trouble in this brain of mine trying to pit standings and putting them in order. The reality is somebody out east has to be in last place. I just go back and forth who that might be. I know it's early in the offseason and a lot can change. I'm with Trey. I expected a lot more from the Calgary Stampeders.
Gotta love it that the two teams I name as my winners are the teams the rest of the crew just says are the losers of free agency right afterwards combined. That bodes well for consistency in our rankings. That should make that kind of interesting as we get into that shortly.
Yeah. Where's Cornelius, Ryan?
And forever in my heart, Trey. Forever in my heart. I'm gonna go to the BC Lions, perhaps, as one of my losers of free agency, because this was a team that kind of late in the season didn't seem to have it all together. And I know they've made coaching changes which might impact that. And I do think Rourke, with a full training camp underneath him, will be much better than he was late in last season. But I look at this team and what they've done in free agency. I don't think they did enough at receiver. I think they took a step back there. Getting McInnes back was huge for sure. But I think they need some more depth pieces there at wide receiver. And I don't know if they've done enough, although I do like some of these defensive pieces like a Micah Awe addition or an Adam Auclair added to that. They did lose guys like Ragamba or Archibald on the defensive line, Adrian Green. They do have a lot of these veterans we're used to seeing there, like a Keontae Evans and a TJ Lee, no longer with the team as of now as free agents. So I don't know. The team, to me, they made some moves. I do like some of their additions. I like what they tried to add at linebacker today. I just don't know if it did enough to move the needle for me as some of the other teams in the division would. So I think BC is my answer for the loser of the day. Any thoughts on biggest surprise of the day?
I don't know if it's a really huge one, but sticking around with the BC Lions, I really thought that Nathan Cherry may come back to Saskatchewan. You know what, they needed some D-line help, especially in the Canadian side of things. I thought that maybe Saskatchewan would be after him a little bit, and especially being a U of S boy. Usually Saskatchewan does seem to like to pursue those. So I thought that maybe he was going to be on the move. Good on him, though, that he's sticking around with his team that drafted him. So, yeah, that was a little bit of a surprise for me. Overall, otherwise, hasn't been a whole lot of surprises. I'm disappointed that Anthony Lanier is gone and off to the Toronto Argonauts. Part of the business, I guess, and needed a new face, a new kind of maybe a new breath of fresh air. Yeah, he'll do great in Toronto, but not maybe a surprise as much as it's kind of sadness that he's kind of going somewhere.
Trey, Mike, any big surprise of the day for you?
For me, and this isn't just about today, I think the Saskatchewan Roughriders have the best quarterback tandem in the CFL, and I don't think it's even close. You have a serviceable backup in the form of Jake Mayer, who will be out to try to redeem himself from what his critics are saying in Calgary. You have Trevor Harris coming back, who will be like that stubborn player that doesn't want to call it a career, that is content on playing until he reaches a certain age point. And they have a very good third string quarterback, which helped them address some of their concerns, perhaps in short yardage. So, excuse me, 1, 2, 3. I think that's one of the best quarterback tandem in the league. Happy that BC finally got some help in behind Nathan Ward in the serviceable Jeremiah Mazzoli. But, 1, 2, 3, Saskatchewan, for me, surprised in a good way. They may have superseded the Bombers as far as team in the West, although it remains to be seen on the football field just how those results bear out. But, Saskatchewan took a really good year last year, and they kind of workshopped around the edges and clearly addressed some needs. I think one of our guests earlier today hit the nail on the head. You go and fix your signs of weaknesses from the year before whenever you can. So Saskatchewan did a really good job in that regard. And, I mean, the only question is that offensive line there. But which of the 9 teams doesn't have a significant question mark going into the season?
That's
Trey?
wild to me. You think they have the best quarterback room?
Yep, 1, 2, 3, yep.
That's wild. Okay.
I think we got to do an off-season episode ranking the quarterback tandems.
That's wild because I'd put him in the top 3 worst. That's wild. Okay.
Yeah, I was a little shocked hearing that myself as well, too. Yeah.
I'll give Stevens his thing that he's probably the best short yardage guy. I'll give him that. But Mayer, I'm not confident in Mayer as my backup, and Harris is another year older and seems to be getting hurt left, right, and center. I don't know. But anyway, what was the question? I forgot.
Biggest surprise of the day.
Biggest surprise of the day is what Mike just said. I mean, you know what? I'm going to be honest. I'm going to say it might be Cameron Dukes and Kadeem Carey returning to Toronto. I think that's the logical choice again for the Argonauts, but I thought maybe both of them would want to go elsewhere. I had some feeling that they wouldn't be able to keep both those guys, especially Dukes, knowing that he's probably the third stringer now, unless, again, there's some inside information on maybe Kelly's not going to be ready by May, June. So now he's the second starter or competing for starter come June. So I don't know. That one surprised me.
Yeah, that was where I was leaning, Kadeem Carey going back to Toronto. But granted, I guess it's not a surprise because when we did our predictions 3 episodes ago, Trey and I predicted Kadeem Carey to go back to Toronto because I didn't have a better option for him really to go anywhere else. But it still seemed a little surprising given the addition of Kevin Brown, who I thought was going to get a bigger role there. And now I'm not sure kind of what that tandem between them looks like in Toronto. So I'll say Kadeem Carey is the biggest surprise. And along with that, maybe just some of the names we haven't seen signed today, which I'll quickly run through on the free agent tracker for you here. And then we'll get into doing our season predictions. So this is your couple-minute warning here, guys, to start figuring that all out. In terms of who's left at the end of our free agent frenzy special, barring any last-minute changes, pretty slim quarterback market out there. I've been seeing a lot of love for Brian Scott on Twitter. The Brian Scott fan club is big there, trying to suggest, 100% completion rate last year. Look at him go. So you've got a couple of quarterbacks left on the list there. The biggest free agent fish at running back was the aforementioned Kadeem Carey. Frankie Hickson and Johnny Augustine are probably the two most notable left, and Jamal Morrow, who had a slew of injury issues last year. If anybody wants to take another chance on him there as your running back options. At wide receiver, not a ton of signings today. The big 3 are still left on the board. Stephen Dunbar, over 1,100 yards and 5 touchdowns last year. If we're talking about any team needing an addition at wide receiver, he's definitely the top name out there. I look at a team like Edmonton and the reuniting of him there to be a good fit for him. Alexander Hollins, Mark, and Michelle also at the top of the list of remaining wide receivers. Offensive line, a lot of the big names are still out there. A lot of vets: Sean McEwen, Suk Chung, Hunter Stewart, Joel Figueroa, Philip Blake, Evan Johnson, among others, Ryan Sevier. Lots of offensive linemen to tinker with in the next coming weeks as well for anybody looking to make an upgrade. Same thing with the defensive line: Julian Hauser, David Menard, Nick Usher, leading the way among a slew of defensive linemen still available for folks to sign. At linebacker, Adam Bighill is a free agent. The Bombers posted a farewell video on social media, so he's definitely not back with the Bombers. Does he have it left in the tank? Where does he go? Remains to be seen. Tyrone Vrede, Darius Williams among the remaining linebacker options, but a lot of them have signed here today. Defensive back, Trey Roberson was going to go to the Red Blacks and changed his mind. Deontay Evans, TJ Lee, Brandon Dandridge, Brandon Dozier, Richard Leonard, a couple of good options left in the defensive backfield. And if you're looking for a kicker or a punter, Boris Beatty is still out there. Stephen Flintoff and John Haggerty left on the board for the punters here. Super quick, went through the lists here. Of the guys still out there, who's the most intriguing name to everybody?
I'll go first. I'll say Dunbar / Hollins. Those two guys. I guess there's a lot of big names, and I guess if you have to tier them, they must just be top 2 tier, and those other guys were top 1. But yeah, those two guys for sure.
Adam?
2 big names on the defensive line that I'm looking at. Nick Usher for Hamilton. I mean, I'm saying kind of surprised nobody's touched him yet. And Miles Brown for the Rough Riders. I'm surprised that the Riders didn't bring him back yet, although I think there might be a riot in Winnipeg if somebody even thought about him.
Mike? Mike is looking for the mute button.
Yeah.
There he is.
Sorry, Ed. I was looking at the charter for a minute. Yeah, no, like the one that jumps out just before we get to what I'm thinking about who stands out what's left is the scarcity of the quarterback market. There's not a lot of intriguing options there. I mean, Dominic Davis, Dakota Protop might be options. I'm curious, where does Frankie Hitson go? He's still out there. He's still serviceable in my mind. Maybe I don't know. It's just very interesting. That's a scenario where I wonder if he catches on with somebody as a practice roster player. And then for me, it's John Haggerty. Like, I know his preference is probably to return to the Yardos, but the longer he's out there, it makes you wonder. Maybe he's mowing retirement and he hasn't made any decisions yet, or who knows what. But Haggerty, to me, was the second best punter in the CFL last year behind Trey Julian, is now in the NFL. So I don't know. It's just very interesting. Like, I think a lot of what we saw is what we got today, and that's just the way it goes with these things sometimes, eh?
Yeah, for sure. In terms of my picks here, I think I'm going to go to the offensive line, and just the sheer number of options still out there is intriguing to me. Just based on, I think everybody could use more options on the offensive line. I mean, we see teams get injuries there all the time, and then the depth really gets tested, and you have to put a guy like Micah Johnson on the O line if you're Saskatchewan. So, bringing some of these guys into camp, whether it's this week, whether it's closer to the season, I expect a lot of these guys to hopefully get some looks still, potentially, because there's a lot of veteran experience here. And the one underrated name I'll give you that I'll be very excited to see where he goes if he gets a shot is Kyron Moore, who had a season-ending injury last year, but back when he was healthy, was a pretty solid receiver in the CFL and could be a good depth add for a team, assuming he can bounce back from his injury properly.
On a side note, BC, how come you have not signed David Mackey or TJ Lee back yet? Aren't they doing like a documentary for you at this current time?
I think that was for the 2024 season. So.
Oh, okay. Then we're all good. They can go down the road.
Yeah. Here, film this movie and then leave. Basically what it is. All right. It's that time of the show. We've got about 20 minutes or so left here. We've talked ins and outs of each of the teams here today, and it's been enough time for us to make our judgment calls on where they're going to rank in the CFL, except I haven't been doing that over the last 8 hours, so I'm going to scramble to do it when my turn comes up. I don't know about anybody else. How do we want to do this as we go through our East and West standing predictions? Thoughts? Do we want to go one, like each person goes one at a time? Each person gives their entire East. That's probably the most efficient way to go through it. Just give your whole East rankings, and then we'll go and all do the West. Who wants to kick us off? Who's brave enough to kick us off with their East Division rankings for this year?
I'll go first, Ryan.
You want to go first, Trey? You go right
I'll go first, yeah. Oh, they not like us. Let's go. Let's go. So we're starting at number 4, working up.
Yeah, however you want to do it, just give all 4. So
4, I'm unfortunately going to go with the Ottawa Red Blacks. It'll be close, but I'll say them. 3, I'm going to go with the Ticats. I'm still not, I don't know. I don't know about Bo. I want Bo. I don't know. Shoot. Yeah, we'll go with Ticats 3. Again, this is going to be like half a game between like top and bottom here. Like, it's going to, if there's a tie, we're going to have some wild shit in the East. Then go Argos, Montreal. Yeah. But like I said, there's going to be two or three games from top to bottom. I think the East will really outclass the West once again this year.
All right, I should be writing this down.
Yeah, I thought you were. I'm not.
I was busy updating the free agent tracker. Gregor McKellar official deal now with the Edmonton Elks. Repeat it super quick. Montreal at the top or Toronto?
Montreal at the top.
Montreal, Toronto, Hamilton, Ottawa for Trey.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to Mike next. Mike, what do you have for your East Division rankings? And basically why?
It's a little more cut and dry for me. I'm doing Ottawa 4. I'm doing Toronto 3. I'm doing Montreal 2 and Hamilton 1.
All right. Any thoughts on why?
I just think that Ottawa hasn't done enough and shown enough to be able to compete with the other 3 teams. Toronto, I think they do for a bit of regression, while Montreal continues their run of dominance, although they hit a little bit of adversity with their young quarterback Davis Alexander, and then Hamilton to me just had the pieces to win first place, finish in first place. Whether they win the East Division or not, we'll find out shortly.
Fair enough. And Adam, you want to go next?
Oh, what the heck? I'm going to go with Ottawa 4th. I just, you know what? They've done quite a bit, but they're still not quite where they need to be. And I'm sorry, I don't have confidence in Drew Brown right at this moment. Number 3, I'm going to go with this is tough. And I mean, it's going to, like Trey said, there's going to be half a game or a game there between them. They're going to be battling right till week 20. I'm going to go with the Argonauts in 3. The reason being is I think that their defense has just finally got enough pieces taken away from it that it needs to go down a little bit. Hamilton number 2. The reason being, again, I think that they've done a lot to help themselves, and they do have enough pieces now. It's going to be just, again, gelling and getting going, I think, is more what it's going to be than anything. Bo Levi, again, you haven't worked with Wolotarski, you haven't worked with Lawler. Yeah, have some pieces in there that are going to have to work to learn each other a little bit. And the first one, I'm going to go with the Alouettes. Davis Alexander, I think Cliffy's right. That guy there could be the next, non-Canadian Nathan Rourke, essentially. I think he's a really good quarterback, and if he gets off to a good start and gets rolling quickly with the Alouettes, that's going to be a tough team to beat. So Montreal, Hamilton, Toronto, and then Ottawa.
Yeah, for me, I've got pretty similar. I think mine actually lines up with Mike. I have Ottawa at 4 as well. It's I wanted to move them up, but I didn't know who to put in last is part of the problem, right? Where I feel like Ottawa did good. Like, I like the pieces they brought in. Don't like some of the pieces like Damon Webb that they unfortunately lost, but I don't know if it did enough for me, and Ottawa was shaky at times last year, so I got to put them 4th again. I do have Toronto going down to 3rd for me as well, just based on some of the pieces they lost. They did a decent job of replacing a number of them. I think the question marks at quarterback maybe are there still for me. I mean, they survived it last year with Kelly gone for half the season. So I could see them still finishing top 2, but I do think the Ticats are going to be improved enough. Montreal, I've got at number 2. I'm excited to see what Davis Alexander can do, but I'm really high on the Ticats. Bo Levi Mitchell continuing where he left off last year. The addition, presumably, we're assuming Kenny Lawler going there. Some of the additions on the offensive line and just the moves they've made. I'm really excited to see that team flourish this season. So I'm going to go Hamilton at number 1 there as well. As we move on to our West Division picks, and Adam, I'm going to throw it to you first on this one. You are muted.
Yeah, this is going to be a little bit tough. I don't. The West I've been dreading because Edmonton's gotten better. BC's pretty good already, and they got Nathan Rourke for a full training camp, which is going to help. Winnipeg is great, always there somewhere. I don't know how, but they always end up there. Saskatchewan looks like now the veteran heavy team that could maybe been together for long enough that they could be the team to beat. I'm gonna go with Calgary in fourth. I'm sorry, or fifth, I guess. Calgary, I just cannot see. I mean, Vernon Adams, unless he gets some help in there for some receivers and some offensive line, I just don't see them having a great season this season in Calgary. So give me Calgary finally getting dead last. It's been a while, but it's going to happen finally. This one's tough because Edmonton and BC are very close, I think. I think right now BC has the edge because they've got a few guys that have worked together. Nathan Rourke has been there for a little while, maybe a little more veteran. And if it depends on the leash and Trey Ford for Edmonton, I'm going to go with Edmonton in fourth, BC in third. And that being said, this is, again, Trey's right. It's going to be a half a point between all these teams, and it's going to be the Wild West. It's going to be a shootout right till the end, and some team is going to probably get some unfortunate wind in Montreal or something and win the first place. But I think it'll be Saskatchewan that'll get the win this year, and Winnipeg's going to get the second place this year going into the playoffs. I think Winnipeg's going to host. I think Saskatchewan. Again, we should put a star beside me saying any of this, pending being healthy, because Saskatchewan has a tendency of, going through some running through some blenders while going to the playoffs. You know what? If they're healthy, I think Saskatchewan will be first, Winnipeg second, BC third, Edmonton fourth, maybe a crossover. I don't know. Edmonton deserves a playoff spot, but I just can't fit them in anywhere. And Calgary fifth. That's what I'm going to go with.
Sounds good. I can chime in second this time since I went last on the East Division. I've also got Calgary in fifth. I wanted to move them up. I like the additions they've made on offense. My one concern is I don't believe in Dave Dickinson's play calling right now, or the Calgary play calling. I feel like the game plan they produced on offense, they spread the ball around to like 8-9 different guys. I think you need to put the ball in Bagleton's hands and Rhymes' hands and those kinds of guys. So I don't believe in the offensive game plan enough where to move them up right now. So I'll put Calgary in last. I will put BC in fourth, I think. They were my loser of free agency today. I expect a Rourke bounce back, but I want to see BC maybe be a little more active and add to receiver, or maybe I'll change my mind once I see some of these guys like Eberhardt and Barry Hill step up further. They had a good start last year as well, but also some up and down concerns of Buck Pierce's play calling when it matters most. And James Butler is good, but I don't think they can use him the way they used Oliveira, where to save him for the fourth quarter and use him as a bell cow there. So I've got BC in fourth. I do move Edmonton up to third in my rankings for this year. I'm not going to claim them first. I've learned to temper my expectations on the Elks. But I am excited based on all of the pieces they've added, but it's always a question mark of whether they're going to produce well together and have that chemistry on the field. And then it comes down to Winnipeg and Saskatchewan. I do have the Bombers finishing first again because I'm going to pick that until it doesn't happen at this point. After last year, what was it? A 2-6 start to the year last year? Like, how much worse can you do and then still win the division? Probably not a whole ton. So they lost some pieces, but I do like what they brought back to replace some of them, and they seem to find some of those diamonds in the rough. So I'm still going to put Winnipeg at 1, but it's very close. And I think the Riders didn't do a whole ton, but they didn't lose a whole ton, and they're still pretty good, and they're going to finish second in the West.
Can I ask you a question, Ryan?
Sure.
Maybe explain it. I missed it. So you have your winner fifth and your loser fourth of free agency.
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to make sure I heard you right.
No, that is it. Yeah. And it's based on where they were previously. Right? Like I feel like Calgary had so much further to go, and they made strides, but not enough.
No, fair.
And BC, same thing. I think they fell back a little bit, but are still better than Calgary. What do you got, Trey?
Let's go fifth. I think this will be the one team that might not be a couple games back, and it'll be a fair bit back. Let's go with the Stamps fifth. Fourth, I'm going to go with my 14-4 darlings, the Saskatchewan Roughriders. I'm going to put them fourth this year. I'm not sold on that quarterback room. Olette showed up late last year. If it's a late start again, I don't know. If anything happens to Harris, I'm not convinced Mayer or Tommy Stevens is going to be your savior, or any of those pending free agents quarterbacks up there. Third, give me Edmonton. Give me Edmonton third. They'll find a way into the playoffs, but then they'll meet the BC Lions in BC Place and likely lose. And I hate to say it because it's not going to happen, but give Winnipeg first, just for the same reason Ryan said. Until otherwise proven, that's the bet to make. And right now, you don't bet against the Bombers, unfortunately.
This might be the first free agent frenzy where Trey hasn't told us the Bombers are finishing 7-11.
I think they'll be 10-8, but they'll still somehow be first because I think that's how close the West will be, and I think the East will be that much better. Where the East we're gonna have like how past years where the East has been 10-8, 9-9, and 8-9, or 8-10 making the playoffs. I think it'll be a little bit switched this year, where maybe a team like Montreal will be the 13-5, 14-4. Toronto, Hamilton will be in that range as well, where they're all gonna split each other. Their head-to-head matchups, but then they're just going to kill the West, I think. Yes, Mike.
I have a question.
Oh God,
is the West gonna be bad at 10-8 if anybody can beat anybody?
No, maybe bad is not the way I want to word it. I think it's going to be like. I think it's just going to be I don't think the East has been overly bad. No. I think the East has just not been as good as the West, right? Past years. So I think it's just going to be a little bit of a switching of the guard. We saw it late last year. A lot of the teams in the West were still good, but Montreal, Toronto were really exceptional. Even Hamilton got hot late, So I think it's just going to be a little bit of a switch where I think the East will just beat up on the West, and there might be one of those things where, we might see a random 2-8 team beat, maybe there will be a 2-8 West team beat an East team late, but I think the East is going to beat up on the West. Just from how it looks, man. Like Hamilton just looks scary. It was hard to put them third, it just Montreal looks scary. Toronto, I mean, they must be doing something right if they don't want to bring the whole boys back together and overpay them like the Bombers have done in past years, right? So just something. The East looks scary.
That's the question, Mike? Got?
Yeah.
All right. Well, for me, it's Calgary number 5, BC number 4, Saskatchewan number 3, Edmonton number 2, Winnipeg number 1.
What about that best quarterback room, though? Just bugging you, Mike.
It's not the quarterback that made. It's not the quarterback that makes or breaks everything. However, I think the Riders will be an okay team. I just don't know, with a couple of injuries here or there, that they could lose a couple of games. And I'm just looking at that late season game between the Bombers and the Riders, and wouldn't that be something if that means a whole lot of something? I think it's in week 20 or week 19, I want to say. So late season matchup to be sure. And for the Bombers, I think it's you're first until you're not. I think there were some shrewd, savvy moves today. I think they went out and fixed that D line. Then they got that guy from Montreal, the former Bison there, whatever his name is there, Brock. He did, it's just savvy little moves that what you do when you lose 3 straight championships is you have your core and then you change around the edges. I think the Bombers are deeper at receiver. I think they're denying a lot Dylan Mitchell to be 1,000-yard receiver, and I think Cobb is going to be something special, and I think they finally were able to rectify the return game with Peyton Logan. I really want to see if they can get Johnny Augustine back. I'm not sure But Peyton Loden is coming here to be a running back. I think he's here to be a returner. I think if we see Peyton Loden as a running back in any capacity, something's gone very wrong. Don't bet on that. Don't bet against that Colaros until proven otherwise. I think there's going to be some open competition over who the backup is. There's 6 or 7 guys on the roster right now in the quarterback room. Although I seem to have a thing for quarterback room since I've come back on here. But no, until you're proven otherwise, I think, the Bombers will be the team to beat in the West. And I think with the lion's share of veteran players back, there's no reason why they shouldn't in this division, where I think there's a lot more questions than answers. The Bombers are the model of stability.
All right, and then to end off the predictions, we got to do Grey Cup predictions here. Who you got playing in the Grey Cup and who you got winning? I can go first. The team that hosts the Grey Cup, something crashes and burns for them every single year. The Bombers are not making it to the Grey Cup for the 5th straight year. I do have the Saskatchewan Roughriders coming out of the West Division, and the Hamilton Tiger Cats coming out of the East Division, and let's end the drought. The Hamilton Tiger Cats, Bo Levi Mitchell leads them to the 2025 Grey Cup. You got to believe in Bo Levi Mitchell, and that's my pick for this year. Adam?
Well, I said that the Riders are going to probably face the Bombers in the West Final. I believe that that's still the case, sort of. Again, Winnipeg, I think, is one of those teams that's going to be one thing or the other. They're going to be real good or real bad, but I think that they're going to be probably pretty good. So Riders, Bombers in the West Final, Hamilton, Montreal in the East Final. I'll say that Hamilton, you're right, will win a sneaky close one against the Alouettes. Davis Alexander needs one more year to kind of learn the system in the defense. Or the offense, and learn how to play the big game. And I think that's where that's going to probably be Hamilton's downfall. Montreal's downfall in this year. So I'll say Hamilton will make the East. I'm going to say that Winnipeg is going to go and hit the upright on a last-second field goal attempt, because you know what? It has to happen sometime for vengeance purposes. Saskatchewan will go to the Grey Cup in Winnipeg, and there will be a million Green fans in downtown Winnipeg celebrating, and then going home sad, because I think that the winner of that game is going to be Bo Levi Mitchell and the Hamilton Tiger Cats as well. You actually nailed it right on there, Ryan, for what I was thinking too. And promptly, Bo Levi Mitchell retires from the CFL. Mind you, if the Riders win the game, I think that Trevor Harris officially retires from the CFL as well. So whichever quarterback makes it, if those two do, one of them is going to retire right after the game.
You got me with that bait and switch where you said Riders fans were celebrating, and I was already typing in Saskatchewan Grey Cup, and then you switched it on me. Mike, what you got for your Grey Cup?
Yeah.
All right, my Grey Cup. Call me a homer if you want. Winnipeg beats Montreal in the Grey Cup at home.
You're a homer, Mike.
Yep. Whatever.
You said to call you that.
I'll take that. Montreal beats Hamilton in an epic East Final. Maybe a couple overtimes. Bombers find a way to nudge past Edmonton, and we'll set up a home Grey Cup with the Bombers having a chance to exercise games past by defeating the Montreal Alouettes in the Grey Cup at home. To put a storybook ending, a great 6 years of Bomber football in Winnipeg.
The storybook ending never happens. It doesn't happen.
6 years of excellence. There will be no 7th.
As much as we were saying don't bet against the Bombers, I don't think I'll ever bet in the Bombers' direction in the Grey Cup again after the last couple of years once they get there. I love this comment from Brandon in the chat, by the way. Bombers versus Bombers in the Grey Cup. Winnipeg versus Hamilton, baby, because they're the Bombers of the East. Trey, what you got for your Grey Cup?
Oh, we'll talk about the West first. I think I had Edmonton third, right? BC, Winnipeg, so I got to make sure I follow that. BC smacks Edmonton and says that maybe next year's son. Winnipeg wins, goes to their 6th straight Grey Cup. Yeah, I am kind of sick. Don't worry. I take a lot of Advil. East side, Hamilton. Little upset in the 6. Because I said I had, or did I have Toronto second? Whatever.
Montreal, Toronto, Hamilton. So
yeah, Hamilton back-to-back upsets. Hamilton and Winnipeg, Bombers versus Bombers. Give me the Ticats, Oski Wee Wee. And here's a fun fact. So 3 of us are taking them, and I would jump on this. I had to check betting odds. Even with all their moves and stuff, they're plus 1650. So that means $10, you'd win 175. And they're the second longest shots on the board. And I would probably, don't bet the farm, but bet the ant farm on the Ticats right now. The only team with bigger odds is Calgary, and I'd stay clear of Calgary. Toronto, Montreal, Winnipeg, BC, and Saskatchewan all kind of aren't worth it odds-wise. So if you want to bet, I'm looking Hamilton right now. And I'd get in on that before maybe a guy like Lawler officially signs and some of these other official signings, because that might change odds.
That's an interesting thought process. I didn't think to check throughout the negotiation window is how many of these rumored deals is Vegas on top of with the odds, right? Where could you get a team on like the opening day of the negotiation window?
I thought we talked about it a few weeks ago, and the odds seem a little different. I don't remember Hamilton. I don't remember some of the, like Ottawa is actually a lot better at plus 800, and I thought they were farther down before. So there is some movement. I'm just surprised Hamilton hasn't moved as much. They have Edmonton above, and so I'm just kind of surprised on that. Mike, you look confused. What do you want to say, buddy? You're muted again.
He's thinking. He's thinking. He's working on something over there. I'll give him a second. We got a few minutes left till we officially hit 8 hours worth of coverage because we had our little blip in the middle. Thought?
I'm confused. I'm confused because I'm looking at the odds on FanDuel right now. The FanDuel odds right now have it as Argos at 250, Alouettes at 400, Bombers at 420, Lions at 750, Riders at 800, Red Blacks at plus 900, Elks at plus 1200, and then 1600 plus 1600 for both the Ticats and the Stampeders.
I'm on a different side. I'm on CoolBet, so they have different odds.
Yeah, no, I'm looking at FanDuel right now.
Yeah, that's all. Yeah. See, actually, I would go a couple of these teams. You said the odds seem better on. So that's what. Hey, remember we were sponsored by BetStamp? And it shows all the different odds. I'd actually look at something like that only because Hamilton, you're getting better odds if you go different sites. There was a couple of teams you mentioned that are different or better odds. I wouldn't go with Calgary. Seemed to be a lot better on FanDuel, but is FanDuel the official partner, so they might be more updated. That's not always a good thing. If you want, sometimes you want a better price, you go with the team that's not updating as quick, right? I'm actually surprised they even have odds on the Grey Cup right now. So,
no, it's interesting, right? I mean, if we can't even have a clear consensus, I can't even imagine these betting sites right now. 6 hours or so into this free agency window, it's just interesting.
That's why I'm surprised they didn't take it down or something, shut down the book over this 2 or 3 weeks, because the CFL in a good year is an absolute, Russian roulette of who's going to do anything. Like Montreal was a huge underdog when they won, and then they won 8 in a row. Like, who saw that coming, right? It's not quite the NFL where we knew Kansas City and Buffalo were going to be there at the end. There's always a couple teams in the CFL because it's so unknown, right? So I'm actually surprised to have these odds up, but yeah, I would definitely be on Hamilton right now. That's probably going to be my official bet right now as of February 11th to be on the Ticats.
I will say it's rather interesting that, right before we gave our predictions, I had mentioned that my winners of free agency was everybody else's losers. And so there would be some disagreements there. And yet we ended up with 3 of us having Hamilton in the Grey Cup and winning the Grey Cup. So there was maybe a little bit of disagreement in terms of winners and losers on free agency day, but I think we're all in consensus that it's going to be pretty close in the CFL this year, and some teams are going to get better, some are going to get worse, and sometimes making the moves you make today aren't enough to confidently move you up in the standings when you look at a team like Ottawa or a team like Calgary that I think none of us particularly believed in moving up in the standings this year. Adam, you looked like you had some philosophical thought to share with us.
No, not this time, actually. You're right. I mean, certain teams, you can do what you want. Again, I look at a team that does a lot in a GM that really, really embraces free agency, like Ed Hervey, and say, you know what, that sometimes does work. You can go after a pile of great names and build yourself a team immediately in the CFL if you really want to. And then I look at a team like what Winnipeg's done over the last how many years and what Montreal has been doing over there in Montreal. You don't have to go after all the all-stars. You just got to build from within. The scouting is the biggest thing. I always think you got to be recruiting that next big name onto your team, like the next Dalton Schoen or the next Dylan Mitchell or the next, again, another guy that I can't believe hasn't been even looked at, the old running back from Edmonton, Kevin Brown. I mean, he's disappeared off the face of the earth, and last year he was probably a number 1 pick on certain guys' fantasy boards. So, you know what? Yeah, sorry, Ron. Anyways, you know what? Is sometimes fantasy is a great, or free agency is a great thing. It can even up teams. It can make teams a little better. And you know what? Sometimes it's all about chemistry, and when they hit, it works great. When it doesn't, free agency can make you look real bad in a real hurry as well. So it will be very interesting to see what the hell happened here. I'm going to say by week 7, week 8, you're going to see a lot of what's going to be coming out of these teams and what happened with free agency. Again, probably your biggest signings that are good to mark down, because we'll see what happened to that team when free agency, or when the actual balls start hitting the field and season actually starts happening.
Can I say something? We're the only idiots that can go over an 8-hour podcast.
We're not officially over yet.
Oh, we're not? Oh, that little break. I was like, I knew we were close. I knew we had that break, but man.
Like 2 minutes from now, we're officially at 8 hours, but I could go another 2. Let's do it. Just kidding. I'm running out of things to talk about. Unless we start ranking every position, including the top 3 quarterbacks for each team. But maybe we'll save that for another episode in the near future. Final thought before we do the wrap-up stuff is this last comment here from the bomb in the YouTube chat, that injuries and depth determine who wins games. That's an excellent point. Like, you can go out, you can sign every top name on free agency day, but what happens if they get injured, right? And that's why we look at a team like the Argos, who has won 2 cups and had a 16-2 season in the last 3 years. And we talk about them losing so many pieces and being decimated on free agency day because their top tier players get poached by other teams. And yet we still pick them to finish, typically this year, I think we were a little less high on them, but typically top 2 in the East Division. And that's because they are a team with so much depth. Same thing with Winnipeg over the last 5-6 years. You've gotten, they've lost some pieces every year in free agency, but kept the nucleus together and then added a few diamonds in the rough that find their way. So, the big moves are the ones people will talk about today, but it's the underrated moves or the depth pieces already on a lot of these rosters that are going to be the difference makers when we hit the field in June. All right, it's time to wrap things up. We've been live for 8 straight hours here. Well, 8 mostly straight hours with a couple-minute break in between. Yes, we have been going for 8 hours full coverage here today. CFL Free Agent Frenzy 2025. I hope everybody enjoyed this. It's a lot of work we put into it every single year. probably about a month worth of planning and many late nights for yours truly that goes into this. So we appreciate everybody who tuned in, joined us throughout the day. The chat was going pretty well throughout the day. I appreciated all the comments coming in. We had pretty good viewership throughout the day as well. So thanks for making us part of your CFL Free Agency kickoff day. And give us feedback as well. What do you like to hear? What you don't like to hear on these days? You can let us know on social media so we can better tailor events like this in the future for you. What else do we got to talk about? If you enjoyed today's show, again, we are doing this to raise some awareness for CFL Fans Fight Cancer. It's an initiative by CFL fans to raise money for cancer research, and they raise money for cancer research centers in the city hosting the Grey Cup every single year. And this year it's Cancer Care Manitoba. So if you enjoyed today's show, if you do nothing else, we ask that if you have the means to do so, go to cflfansfightcancer.com/donate. I'll leave a little donation on behalf of the Canadian Football Countdown there to support that cause. If you enjoyed today's show as well, if you want to, leave us a like, leave us a comment, follow us on the social media platforms, subscribe on the YouTube page if you want to see every time we go live. If you're joining us for the first time ever today, welcome. If you're joining us for regularly, welcome again. If you subscribe to the YouTube channel, youtube.com/@CFCountdownPod, you will get notified whenever we go live, which is usually pretty much once a week, talking CFL football here on the Canadian Football Countdown. What's coming up next? Not too sure, but I'm sure we'll be back in the next week or two, and maybe we'll get into some more of these highly contested debates. I know one that's come up is the ranking the team's wide receivers. Came up a couple weeks ago, and that's going to be a tough one. So maybe that one will come in the near future, and let us know if you have any ideas for off-season episodes for us as well, as we have a couple more months till CFL football officially kicks off. I'll do our podcast social media plugs here shortly. Both go around the table, and everybody else want to give their final thoughts and where they can find you on social media. Adam, let's start with you.
Well, you can find me at Adam Stewart 1 or Farmer in Sask if you're really looking around on YouTube or on the Instagram. You can usually find me somewhere there. My smiling face is in that area. You know what? Overall, we do this just for the fans. We try to make sure that we have a great afternoon and morning planned. Ryan, I know, does a pile of work to try to get things going in the background. He does a lot of the post advertising and trying to make sure that people know all about what's going on and when they can see the certain podcasters. And again, organizes the guests and does so much on this thing. So Ryan, of course, deserves probably the biggest hand here of all of us. That whole thing that you've been seeing going across our screen once in a while here with the trackers, that's all Ryan's creation. And I mean, it's utterly amazing how that guy spends so much time building things like that and still, can make time for his kids and wife and everything else, because you know what? I had a hard time even trying to keep up just getting cows fed in the back here. So, you know what? Kudos to Ryan. Kudos to Trey for being here all day. Same thing with Mike when he could step in. And of course, thank you to everybody and the fans and the Bomb, Brandon, all of our guests, all those as well. It's always great to visit with the CFL Football Podcast Network guys and see what they're all doing. Nice, good amount of teasing in the background, so that always works well as well. Of course, every team, we didn't hear it from our certain Calgary Stampeders fan, but every team right now is 18-0 and undefeated, and will definitely be that way at the end of the year. But hey, if you haven't watched this Canadian football game, be sure to watch some of those. Be sure to check out the podcast countdown. And the biggest one also, if you get a chance, check us out on Discord. Make sure you check it out there. We got all sorts of up-to-date information if there is anything missing for the any other recent signings or anything else for confirms. We'll have it there on the Discord channel first. Usually our community is so great that they do it before we can. They usually give the confirmations and all. So that part is great as well. But honestly, thank you very much again for everybody for watching. Make sure if you do have the means to do it, to go and make a donation to CFL Football Fans fight cancer. Great initiative. It was a great project from a lot of great people that have started that up and kept it going for many of years. Winnipeg fans, make sure that when you're at the Grey Cup, you check out some of their events going on, because they are pretty fun to be at and to enjoy as well. So I've done enough yapping and thanking and everything else. I'll move it over to Trey, who's probably been like curled up on that sofa for so long that probably he just wants to move from it.
No, there's a good chance I'm just gonna turn on Red Dead, which is right on my TV right there. So I'm probably not gonna move for a few more hours. Maybe get up. I think I'm gonna put shorts on. I still got my pants on from leaving earlier today, but I don't know why I didn't put shorts on. Oh, because I was getting sick. Right, I was like wondering why I didn't put pants on or put shorts on. I never wear pants this long. Yeah, you can find me at Trey MB Harness on the X or Twitter. I got a lot of horse racing stuff on there. You can find me at thewesternpacer.ca. Yeah, that's about it. Don't add me on Facebook. That's about it. Mike, where can people find you?
There should be an auto unmute button instead of having to reach for the mouse, but that's beside the point. People can find me, find my award stuff, mostly GameTimeTV.ca, watch GameTimeTV.ca, Facebook.com/GameTimeTVMB. Playoff season is here. We begin actually 1 week from tonight, as far as the playoffs go, with our coverage anyway. A bit of a quieter week with the long weekend, Family Day, Louis Real Day. I'm not as much on Twitter anymore, but you can find me when I do tweet there, occasionally about Winnipeg Jets stuff. The best team in NHL right now, at Mike Carroll, and looking at firing up our local hockey playoff coverage into the Stanley Cup playoff coverage for the Winnipeg Jets, and then into our show again during the CFL season. So pretty exciting. I just found out I'll be coaching ball hockey again. Off to Nationals in Toronto the week the Bombers are there, which is going to be pretty cool. Team's already talking about taking in the game because it's our last night there before we go home. So there's a lot of cool stuff going on. Some of which a lot of which I can't share right now, but no, it's good. Great to be back. Great to be involved in this little community as well. I listened to what Adam was saying, and I couldn't agree more with everything he said. And just to be able to do this, it's just my favorite day of the year, for sure. And yeah, no, that's where you can find me.
Right on. You can find me on social media, but there's really no point because I don't post anything. But I'm at Cooper Trooper 42 on both X and Blue Sky. So you can find me there. I'll be hibernating for the next week or so after this because I'm exhausted. But nonetheless, you can find me there if you'd like. But most importantly, you can find the podcast on social media. Facebook.com/CF Countdown Pod, X.com/CF Countdown Pod, Blue Sky at CFCountdownPod.bsky.social, I think is the handle there. So you can find us on all the social media platforms. We'll try to keep engaging regularly on there as more news comes in over the next couple of weeks as some of these signings come in. And you will get notified there as well whenever we're planning a new episode of the show, which should be out in the next couple of weeks. You check out the Discord. Adam mentioned that already, I believe. Link is in the episode description. It's free to join us over there. Join the conversation with us and a large number of additional CFL fans. It's a great community we're building there, so we hope you come join the conversation. Check out all the other great shows from around the Canadian Football Podcast Network as well, at CF Pod Network on Twitter. Also, the Alternative Football Network at the official AFN on Twitter, or alternativefootballnetwork.com. I know the folks there do a lot of work to help promote our shows as well. So thank you to them for that as well. And yes, as Adam said earlier, thank you to all of our guests for joining us throughout the day. This wouldn't be as successful as it is without all of their contributions and making time out of their busy day. I know it's hard sometimes in the middle of a Tuesday to make time to do this. Thank you to Mike, Trey, and Adam as well for making time in your Tuesdays with everything else you've got going on to help put this show together. Because the more the merrier, for sure. And we need the whole crew in order to pull something like this off. Whatever podcast platform you're listening on, we appreciate if you do all the fun things like comment, subscribe, rate, review, share the show with your friends, help us grow the show. We always appreciate that. We appreciate everybody who joined us here today. If you missed parts of the show, they'll be up on YouTube. There's 2 separate videos for you. You can go back, check out any part you missed throughout the day. We'll try to post the audio in the coming days or week as well on the audio podcast platforms there. But for now, on behalf of the entire Canadian Football Countdown crew, thank you for tuning in to CFL Free Agent Frenzy 2025. Take care. Have a good one. Bye.